Pathmonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in their buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50% by adding Pathmonk to your website in seconds, letting the artificial intelligence do all the work, and increase your conversions by 50% while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmonk.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to Pathmonk Presents. We're excited for our guest today. We've got Thibaut from Livestorm. Thibaut, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing quite well. I hope you had an awesome holiday, and we're looking forward to this podcast today. So, I'm really excited to dive into Livestorm a little bit. I know that you guys are one of the most innovative webinar platforms out there, and I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more. But as is tradition here on Pathmonk Presents, we're going to be focusing kind of on the company's growth and marketing strategies, a little bit about Thibaut as a professional, and some playful questions towards the end. But I thought I might get things started with a really easy question. In your own words, why don't you tell us a little bit about Livestorm and what you guys are all about?
Yeah, for sure. So Livestorm is a webinar platform that you can trust. It was built originally when WebRTC became a thing, and it was possible to join webinars without installing a software. So that made things easier for both the host and the participants. And since then, we really evolved around creating more engagement and more engaging sessions in general, which is what people are expecting. And also built a lot of features around easiness to like making lives easier for both hosts and participants. When it comes to hosts, it's for organizing, connecting to their CRM, making sure that everything is automated around, the creating the registration page, doing the follow-up emails, everything that you expect out of the box when you do a webinar around that. It used to be manual, like people used to do that manually before, but now with tools like Livestorm, you can do all of it at once. And for the participants, it's the same. It's a completely seamless experience. You just have to register to the event, and then you join it on your web browser, and everything is set. Recently, we've really shifted our efforts towards addressing bigger companies. Basically, what we've seen is that specifically in Europe, there was no real player that focused on trust and security. And so companies that are a bit different than us, that are not SaaS, but more around financial companies or in healthcare, usually larger companies like above 1,000 employees, they really needed a solution that was really complying with strict policies in Europe specifically. And so, since we've been created from the very early days of GDPR, when that became a thing in Europe,
Yes.
we felt we were in a special place to address this segment. And so we've shifted our efforts toward that. And so that's what 2024 was a lot about, and 2025 is also going to be about that. And yeah, I'm sure we will talk about that later and how
Yeah.
it affects our work. But yeah, that's how Livestorm.
That's very exciting, and I should definitely say kudos to anyone that's looking to make sure that they're fully compliant, because that is not an easy job, and there's a lot of paperwork that goes into that. So, especially if you mentioned healthcare and doing any sort of HIPAA compliance, good luck with that. So, moving on to question number two, I want to focus a little bit on what Livestorm is doing from a marketing perspective. So, maybe you could tell me, who do you serve? What are the companies or industries that you are serving? What sort of problems are you solving for them, and what can they expect?
Yeah. So we still focus on marketers doing webinars. So the vast majority of customers use Livestorm for external events where they showcase either a product or they want to do more of a kind of demand gen type of event where they're going to talk about content around their profession or around their business, but not specifically showcasing their product. And so usually it's going to be marketers using Livestorm. And so, as I said, our main market is in Europe, but we also have customers in the US. And yeah, the two industries we really focus on right now is finance and healthcare. But at the same time, our historical audience is on SaaS, and that's still true today. It's still possible to take, a self-serve plan, going to the website and find us like that. And we still have a big chunk of our customers in this segment. Yeah, and so one of the service we offer, so it really depends. Like if you take a self-serve plan on your own, you have access to the basis of doing a webinar. So everything I mentioned in the before is there. So all the webinar engagement features that you do when you are live, the recording is there, the follow-up emails, the registration page, etc. It comes out of the box. But bigger customers wanting more can actually get. In addition to the platform itself, they can get some, long-term support from the team and actually a more of a consulting-like follow-up and service where we will actually accompany them in having the best results from their event and their event strategy and online event strategy. So yeah, we tend to use webinars and online events, as synonyms. So yeah.
I
Um,
understand. I also want to ask you a little bit of a follow-up question to that. I know since COVID, a lot of these events, especially in the healthcare space, which typically you would have these huge events where people are going to these like massive conferences, and obviously during something like COVID, these events probably are moving more to like an online, let's say, setup. So, what sort of impact or opportunity did you guys see from something like this in terms of like these massive conferences moving more into like a webinar style presentation?
Yeah, so it's actually a bit difficult to answer this question because there is no simple answer. Basically,
Yeah,
you used to have these huge trade shows, and during COVID and a bit after that, people were happy to do them online. And what we're seeing is that people now that they can meet people safely again in real life, they're
yeah.
actually more than happy to travel again and go to these events and trade shows. And so we didn't really jump on this opportunity at the time, and because we thought there was no real recurring use for a solution like that, like us, around these events. So what we've done is more focusing more on doing hybrid kind of events. So if you already
Hmm.
do a real life event, we can plug Livestorm on top of it to ensure that you also broadcast it online
Ah, I
so that people can
see.
join it. But it's not our main offering. Like what it's true that I should have maybe clarified what I mean by webinars. It's events that you do on a regular basis where you have an audience that can be from like a few people, a few tens of people to bigger, like a few thousands of people. But we don't really count huge keynotes. Like imagine the
Ah,
Apple keynotes, for example. I don't count this as a webinar, mainly because the interactions there is just like a stream of like a chat stream. I don't even know if they have that on the Apple
yeah,
keynote, probably not.
that's a
Um,
good point.
but yeah, so we really favor like interaction and ensuring that there is an manageable size of audience.
Yeah, I also like the idea of kind of being able to simulcast, if you will, like, so if some people do have an in-person thing going on, but maybe they also have something, I don't know, like televised, or maybe there's some sort of stream, or maybe you want to do an online webinar as well, like being able to provide these options to people for their events sounds awesome.
Yes, for sure.
I
And
want
you
to
can
move.
actually, sorry to cut you there, but you can
Sure.
actually take it further by broadcasting live, like online, but also broadcast it to different platforms. So through Livestorm, you could also broadcast on Livestorm, but you could also broadcast at the same time on YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, stuff like that. So it
Ah.
further increases the audience
Yeah,
and spread
multicasting.
the
Very
message.
nice. Very nice. Okay, cool. All right, moving on. Question number three. How does your audience typically find out about you? So what are some of those top acquisition channels that you guys are currently working with?
Yeah, so I'm going to maybe talk a bit about the historic of Livestorm. So as I said, in the past, like when Livestorm was created, the target was really about smaller companies, and the focus was really on inbound. So from day one and from the day I joined, that was 7 years ago as a growth engineer, my focus was really on building the best website possible to ensure that we would get as much free traffic as possible through SEO. And I also set up the ads motion and ensuring that through Google search ads, we would also get as much people as possible. And so this is still true today, and it still defines a bit how we acquire our customers. But what's new is that we've added on top of this a big motion to address bigger customers. So that's a lot of focus on outbound efforts and also on events, like on real life events. Um, which we didn't really do. Like we didn't do that at all 7 years ago, and now it's a big part of the whole marketing mix. But when it comes to inbound, what we like the recent changes we've done is initially, so as I said, we had a lot of efforts on the ads parts, and we really shifted this towards SEO. So what we did is we basically used to have a 500,000 ad budget per year. We actually reduced that to about 100,000. So I don't know what number I said. Yeah,
Yeah,
500,000.
500 to 100. Yeah, that's a big
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, yeah. So, and most of this was actually covered by better SEO. So what we did is we started with replacing the brand. So we stopped the branded ads completely because we know like Livestorm is specific enough that we can rank through SEO alone. So we cut this budget, and slowly but surely we started replacing some of our keywords that was going through ads to SEO. And that really started paying off. We actually crossed a huge milestone this year of generating more than 85,000 visitors per month, which was the traffic we had set for the year. And so we're happy that we
Yeah, congratulations.
reached that in November. Yeah, thanks. So that's quite big actually. And yeah, so we noticed that. So for us, it was really helping to reduce the acquisition cost.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. If you can get them coming in through SEO organically and you don't have to be paying for certain ads to be bringing them in, especially if we're talking about larger organizations, you're probably going to be going after some of those most expensive keywords that you want to be targeting, which can, pile up relatively quickly. I am interested, just from an SEO perspective, if you weren't doing a lot of these kind of like branded search terms, and you're going more in the non-branded way, were you going after some of the more competitive non-branded, or were you going for some of those low-hanging fruit? Because SEO is one of these, how do I say, everyone thinks it's a bit of a science, because like if you know the algorithm and you know what factors go into it, then you know how to be able to play with it. But everyone does kind of have their strategies about if you want to be going after some of those more competitive ones, which will obviously take more time in order to start ranking highly for them, or do you want to rank quickly for some of those low-hanging fruits? And from a strategy perspective, I'd be interested to know like what direction you guys took.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's always a trade-off, and it also depends on the resources that you have and the budget that you can put in place. So what we started doing initially, and the very first focus we had was on the low-hanging fruits you mentioned. Like so, for us, for example, one big keyword was best webinar software. It's very simple, very transactional. Like people searching for that, that they're already on the market looking for a tool, and if they find you, there's a big chance they're going
Yeah,
to
high
convert.
intent. Yeah.
High intent, exactly. So that's the kind of keywords we addressed initially, and now that we basically cornered that, with some improvements that can still happen, but it's kind of minor. What we did was actually expand that towards bigger, as you said, like tougher keywords to rank for and more generic ones. Like for example, we target keywords around marketing in general now. And so it's much more difficult to rank on that, but there's also much more different keywords that you can target, like many more keywords you can target. So it's I would say it's just a different approach. It's not specifically more difficult. It's probably a bit different the way you're going to approach it. But yeah, it's a different way to think about it, and it's also further away from a direct conversion. Like the intent is less important. So the way I measure it as well, and the way I monitor the impact on business is also I think about it as a demand gen motion rather than a clear conversion motion. So for example, if we do a guide on ABM, for example, which is a specific topic in marketing, it's not like doing webinars. It's not going to define your ABM strategy, but inside your ABM strategy, you might have some webinars in there. And so that's how it ties up to Livestorm. But the way we think about it is there's a huge pie to take from when it comes to ABM related keywords. And so if we take a slice of that, it's already going to bring a lot of viewers on the website, and they're not going to convert immediately, but it's going to raise awareness around Livestorm. And
Yes,
in turn,
very much
that's it,
so.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'm always very curious to hear what people are, and that's what this podcast is all about, getting different perspectives on the strategies that other companies have been doing. And yeah, I'm happy to learn about that one. I want to move on to question number four, and speed things up a little bit. What role does the website play in terms of client acquisition? It seems like you guys have spent a lot of time really kind of trying to perfect the website. And what sort of strengths or weaknesses does the website have? And yeah, maybe you can tell me about that.
Yeah, so for sure, the main strength I want to mention is SEO. Like as I said, we really optimize the website for that, and we keep building. Like a big part of the roadmap is educated around it, like it's built for SEO. We do that a lot. We also spend a lot of time thinking about how we showcase the product and how we show it to the world so that it's like the value prop is understandable, and going back to the basics of positioning. Since we also changed our positioning quite recently, it's still a work in progress, and we're still learning from this. We also don't want to alienate the historical customers that we targeted, so it's a bit of a difficult path to find here. So yeah, so on what we do well is definitely these points. We also work a lot on optimizing conversions and routing the right leads to the right people at Livestorm. Sometimes it's not a person, but an automated webinar or general webinars that we do, regularly. It really depends on the quality of the lead that we generate. Yeah. So on what we do well, I think that's it. And when I think about what we could still improve, yeah, I mentioned the positioning is still difficult. Like we still need to fine tune how we showcase Livestorm so that we don't alienate anyone, but still showcase our value properly. We also have a big topic around pricing. We changed that also, I mean, 2 years ago, and it's a bit difficult to explain it perfectly well and make sure that everyone can understand it
Of
well. So
course.
yeah, there's always a lot of tests around that.
All right, that's awesome. And you mentioned conversions being one that you guys have kind of tried to optimize for as well. And being a conversion tool ourselves, we're always interested in hearing what people are doing out there. So, like, do you have any sort of tips or recommendations about what does make a great converting website?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it really depends. First, is to define your objectives. Like you can by that, I mean, sometimes like we've done some experiments where the conversion rate was actually reducing, but when we looked in detail on what happened, we saw that the most important cohorts and most important segments for us were actually stable or increasing, and what we lost was actually lower quality leads and targets. So that's a key point, is to always think, like, use your instinct as well as the data in general, or just deep dive on the data. So that's a big thing. And also, yeah, just thinking about what should be improved and what's already there, and what are you missing. And don't think about tools first, but think about the needs and then put the tool in place to address these needs.
That's really well put. I want to move on to the next section, which is a little bit less focused on Livestorm and a little bit more focused on Thibaut as the marketing professional. So I want to get started with a question that's a little bit, how do I say, basic, but maybe you could tell us, like, what does the day-to-day work look like for someone in your position at Livestorm?
Yeah, so when it comes to yeah, I was gonna say about the website specifically, but in general, my goal is really to give the direction of marketing and growth, ensuring that I keep constantly feeding the roadmap and ideas to the team so that we always have something to work on, and also remind everyone of the direction that we have, like the vision, the common topics we want to talk about, etc., etc. And for the website, really ensuring that the tech we have doesn't slow down the projects and that we don't accumulate debt around that. We need to still be able to update the website regularly. We manage it as a product internally, so it's important that we keep pushing updates on a regular basis, like we update it every week, and so we can't afford to have debt slowing us down or issues going on that. And also, quite similarly, but more on the team side, I ensure that really the right, like I constantly think about how I organize processes or how the team is organized around it, and ensure that is the best way to handle it. So for example, one thing we did recently is we went from having an employee work on the website design full time to working with freelancers. And that's, I'm constantly monitoring if that bet is good or not. Like, is the quality of the website design still stable? Is it like, does it take more time to read stuff now? Things like that. So, and I constantly get the feedback from the team.
Yeah, constantly measuring the efficiency, the output, if it's cost effective. Yeah, managing teams like this is definitely a lot of hard work, in addition to getting the results that you want.
Yeah.
So definitely complicated. Next, I know that there's kind of how do I put this? A lot of content out there, and we're always looking to kind of improve and get smarter and better at our jobs. But maybe you could tell me, like, where do you go to kind of stay up to date and get some of the information to constantly learn?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, I spend way too much time on LinkedIn, but the algorithm is really good for me. Like, I actually find good quality content just popping up on my feed on LinkedIn. I don't know if many people can relate to that, but that's my experience. But when it comes to newsletter I subscribe to, there are two that I want to really mention because for me they are the really the top. It's Lenny's newsletter, so it's really focused around PM, but there's a lot of nuggets around growth as well and managing teams as well. And also the newsletter from Elena Verna, who's really focusing on PLG initially, but growth topics in general. Really quality stuff as well. We worked with Elena as a growth advisor in 2021 or 2022 for Livestorm. And yeah, her work is really, really top quality. She was really helpful for us. And her newsletter is invaluable as well.
Yeah, I'll have to add both of those to my list for sure. The way you talk about them, I'm already like itching to read them. Okay, we're moving on towards the last section of the conversation. It's called the rapid fire round. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit more rapid than others, but basically the idea is we're going to have some more playful questions, but we're looking for kind of like short, crisp answers. First thing that pops into your head. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, first one, what's the last book that you read?
Yeah, so about marketing, it has to be April Dunsford. I think it's called Obviously Awesome, the book about positioning. Yeah, so that's gonna be my answer.
Excellent. Number two, if there were no boundaries in technology, what would be the one thing that you would want to have fixed for your role as a marketer today?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. Honestly, the thing I would love is to have a really efficient way and unbiased way to measure our brand visibility and like brand knowledge of our targets. Right now, we have a lot of proxies to measure that, but we don't have a clear way to know how are we doing compared to our competitors or just in general in the market. And
Right.
so having a perfect vision of that would be awesome, and also ensuring like understanding what we need to do in order to drive that up.
Yeah, it is kind of a fictional question in a way, right? So if we're talking about, like no boundaries in technology, yeah, give me a magic tool that can tell me exactly how strong our brand recognition is and how far the reach is. That would be awesome.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, next, if there was one repetitive task that you could automate, any task, what would it be?
For me, the huge pain point that I have, and I started having that when I became a lead, and it became increasingly painful as years went on, was the anything related to handling payments with our tools, like payments,
Yeah.
invoices, tracking that, ensuring that they're filled up in the proper tool. That it's not that it takes too much time, like such a long time, but it's just so repetitive and boring to do, and
And
you have to do it.
also, when it comes to these types of tasks, everything has to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
There can't be any sort of like, oh, you misspelled that or you put a wrong number there. Like those things matter when it comes to these types of tasks. So yeah, it might not be that it takes up the most time, but everything has to be perfect. So the amount of focus that you have to put into it is really high. You are not the first one to say that on this show, just so you know. It's definitely something that a lot of other people have said before.
I'm not surprised.
Okay. And the last question, what is one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you were to restart your journey as a marketer today?
Yeah. I think about that a lot because that's a realization I had not that long ago, actually. It's for a while. So I started as a marketer, like a content marketer, and then I went to growth related roles. And when I started working on growth, I kind of had this mindset where I was thinking only about growth. Like I didn't want to be known as somebody who does marketing. I just wanted people to know me as Thibaut, the growth engineer, or the technical growth guy. And I think it can be good to like gain some skills in this area, and to be good in this area. But I think if you really want to progress as a person, like in your career, you really have to constantly think about marketing as well, and start with thinking about marketing actually, and then think about how you're going to implement growth tactics in order to address the marketing need, and how you're going to address the business. So yeah, my advice would be really go back to the marketing basics. Like if you think your positioning is not strong, your personas are not well defined, if you don't understand how you're going to translate that into new business, that's what you have to address first, and then think about how you're going to implement growth data to address that.
Really well said. Really well said. We've got one last question, which you may or may not be prepared for, but it's a pretty simple one. We're at the end of the show, so before I say anything, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining today. Thibaut, we really enjoyed having you, but I want to give you what we call the last word. So, if someone watching this interview forgets everything that they just saw, what is the one thing that they should remember about your company?
That we do awesome webinars, and that you should definitely check us out for that. We have a ton more coming up in 2025, so stay tuned for the updates. Yeah, that's it.
Sounds great. Hey, well, thank you very much for joining the show today. We really appreciate having you. Everyone, go check out Livestorm if you're looking for some sort of webinar platforms. And Thibaut, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Kevin, for having me.
Thank you.